It's going to be close to 100 degrees today. So why am I taking some time out to sit on my lower deck, my greenhouse deck, and enjoy a morning cup of tea and not be stressed out about my plants? Because I've got a water table that keeps everything wet and a controlled depth and in good shape. So let me tell you about it. The construction of the water table was a 2x6 for the top frame, and I made them 10 foot long, and I cut them down so I have 6 foot this way, and I have 3.5 feet this way. Underneath this, I've got 2x4s that are glued and screwed to the 2x6s. The legs on this are 4x4 construction, and I went a little bit ridiculous on the way I did that. I took and cut the legs so that I end up with a hollowed out point, and I've got about a little short of 1 inch by 1 inch. So I've got a good solid support on this thing. The base of the water table is a pond liner that I've just formed into the table frame, and then I took and only just used simple nails to lock it in place. From here you can see the drain and how I have plumber's putty around to seal it. That does not eliminate all the water coming down because I didn't countersink it, but it does help drain most of the water out. Now I've added 2 layers of 4mm white poly sheet, and this is going to add some reflectivity for the sun, so hopefully this is going to stay a little cooler. It's not going to absorb through the black all the sunlight and all the heat. This will reflect a little bit. So I got 2 layers of the white poly, plus this is 6 foot wide, and my water table is about 3.5. ID's a little bit less, or inside dimension. So I folded the excess over, so I have 2 layers plus a little bit of extra, so about 12 mil thick. So other than heat, why did I put the 4 mil, or well, the white, let's call it white because I've got it so thick it's not 4 mil anymore. But why do I have the white on here? Well, as I said, the reflection of the sun on here should keep my water table colder, not colder really, but cooler, hopefully. Plus, I'm hoping that the pond liner itself that's underneath here has got a little bit of texture. This is very smooth, very slickery, so to speak. And I am hoping that with this slickness that when I do drain this, which I do almost daily, the water is going to run, and any sediment is going to run down into the drain. So let's talk briefly about my hydraulic system. I have a pump underneath the table, and right up here is my inlet. I have a tube running there and down to there. This has got holes in it, and when my pump is on, it will push water through and push some of the sediment through down to my drain. Drain normally sits like about this. This is about it's about 2 inches at the overflow, or a little more. And Let me slide around here. Right here, I have a slit cut. So what happens is when the pump is on, the water can go to the top and overflow. That takes care of the mass amount of water. That takes care of any kind of sediment that's in there. It will go up to the top and down. Then it has a leveling point where it gets down to about here. I can drop that down a little bit more and oftentimes think that's the best plan. I do use this to raise up some of the plants that don't need to be drowned, like the Venus flytraps and sundrews. They can sit higher. They don't get nearly as much water. They're in the water, but not deep. But the sarracenias get a little bit deeper water, but it's still only an inch and a half, thereabouts. So my water system works pretty well. What I'm still cleaning up is my water tank system. I have a hose and, now watch me drop the camera in here, and a pump. And so that pump sits in there, the cord goes into my greenhouse, and the other end of the hose goes to the front. There's the other part of the hose. So when the pump is turned on, it's right up and in. When the pump is in action as it is now, some of the water is forced down and some of it is up. And the reason that is, the down kind of helps to wash clear, and the up waters the plants that don't get a lot of standing water time. So it just kind of adds a little bit of different levels of water, and then it gets all washed down to, isn't it lovely dirty water? Goes down to my drain. A little more on my tank system. You can see the water dripping from my drain into my tank, and I have a screen, standard screen that you'd use in a screen door on that, which does a couple things. One is it reduces mosquito larvae in my tank, and second thing is that it helps to filter anything coming from my water table that drains through. It'll get caught in that screen. I'll be able to filter that out before it gets to my pump. So the water is now down to the low limit that I have it set at. It's very close to where it's going to stop, a little bit more. So you can see that it is not too bad, a little over an inch, and that's on the drain side. The supply side has less water in it, and in fact, with the table having these shelves in there, the metal shelves keep the bottom of the pot up a little bit. So there is really only water when I hit the pump and I do a refresh on this. Where does the evaporation happen? Well, it's got to be from a few places. I've got water standing here. That is going to evaporate. All of the plants, the evaporation happens directly from the plant. It happens from the media that I grow in. And when you have a lot of small pots like these, there's going to be a lot of evaporation just because that pot has got the surface area. It's going to evaporate the water. So I am filling about 2 to 3 gallons per day right now until we get some rain. And it even happens to a lower extent from my catch tank down below that feeds my pump. Shouldn't be as much because that is in the shade, but still there's going to be some evaporation from that. What happens when it rains? Well, obviously I've got some surface area on the table that I can get rain falling into that. That helps. But I also have my greenhouse. It has a gutter on it, and any water that hits on the roof of the greenhouse goes into the gutter and down into this hose that goes into my water table. So I do end up with water coming in from different sources on this. And of course, with the greenhouse, it is a non-reactive material. And it's just a plastic up on there to help reduce the sunlight going into the greenhouse. So there's no contaminants that are on there. So the water coming in there is pure. So the water table overall now has all the plants in. It's got the new poly in there. And it has all been pretty much refilled and set up the way it's going to be. You see, we have a wasp or bee or something that's looking into this. Probably going to get water more than anything else. So does that mean everybody's going to go out and build a water table kind of like mine? I kind of doubt it. It's a little complex. I have a little bit of time on my hands being retired, and I kind of enjoy the playing with power tools, and so that's why I built mine. But it certainly is an improvement over last year, where I just had round buckets on the deck, and then I'd fill it up with water and hope that I had enough water in there and that the water didn't get too hot or the plants get, dried out because there wasn't enough water. Having that control has helped me out a lot. I do have to watch the water on there, because with the water size I've got, the 6 by 3.5 foot, and with the amount of plants in there, the water does evaporate. And so I am adding water, since it kind of refuses to rain here. Adding water from my RO system, that allows me to use the pump for 15 minutes a couple times a day. It refreshes the water, makes everything in good shape. So that's my method of keeping water for my carnivorous plants, and it's been working out really well for me. I really like the way it's working. So I hope that inspires you to control your water, control your plant temperature, and I hope that your plants grow well this summer. Birds are out. I did have a problem with birds attacking that, but that's another story. It's nice and quiet out here. I just sit here with my gnome and look at the garden. I have a small raised bed garden, and I've got a few things growing, and we are into mid-June, so we're still doing well.